you could never be frightened by a television movie. Watch what happens to the citizens of Salem's Lot. Is something evil killing the people in Salem's Lot? Or are they killing each other?
Run! No!
A terrifying 3-hour special movie presentation Tuesday. Watch it with someone you trust.
This is CBS.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to the blockbuster new release while in our memory, we grab a copy off the shelf, we pop it in our VCR, and we see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
They found us.
and together we're here to help you navigate all the landmines littered down memory lane. So Mike, I don't know, I'm just not in the Halloween mood for some reason this year. Here it is, it's almost October's already over. Nearly. The big day is just a few days away, and just not feeling it this year. I don't know what the problem is. You?
I'm not feeling Halloween. I know there's a big full moon right outside tonight.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in that spooky mood, but not in the Halloween mood, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot to do with. Typically, by this time in October, I'm a good 20, 25 movies in that I've watched.
Right.
But for some reason, this October, I don't know if it's the new job or the new schedule, but I'm busy, but there's nothing going on. That makes sense?
Yeah. And just so you know, when I did see the moon tonight, it didn't turn into a skull, which I was kind of hoping it would. That'd be kind of cool. But
I got some glowing hole in the water you can explain for me here. I think the other thing about that is I keep falling asleep like an old man now.
You did the nap thing.
Yeah, up until this year, I could typically get a lot of Halloween movies in by doing these marathons into the wee hours of the morning, 2 or 3 at night. But I'm finding myself kind of falling asleep on the couch at 10:15 anymore, right in the middle of a movie, and that's hurting the whole atmospheric thing as well.
Yeah.
It's one of the things they don't tell you in the Getting Old handbook that you start falling asleep.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's
like ear hair. They don't talk about ear hair in that book, do they? My ears look like Bert and Ernie's eyebrows sometimes. It's ridiculous.
I don't understand. Why does our hair turn gray, but we grow it from all these other places?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And don't even get me started about the my doughy features.
Oh, yeah.
It's
my sacroiliac, I could go for a while about that one.
Yeah, it's like every part of my body is a hard-to-reach area now.
That's right.
Oh, but no one's listening to hear about the condition of our bodies, Mike. So
I can hear him from Germany right now saying, "Get on with it."
Oh, this is our version of horror, guys. All right, so let's talk about something else horrible. Let's talk about this is an interesting one, Mike, because it's kind of a seminal moment in the show. This is the first time we're going to talk about a TV movie.
That's right. This is hard to believe that a movie like this came on 2-part movie on CBS in '79. That's crazy.
Of course, we're talking about kids' Salem's Lot from 1979. Aired originally on the CBS network as a 2-part miniseries in November 17th and November 24th, 1979. Saturday night creature features, Mike.
Yeah, you could watch this movie, and then the next night you could watch, Alice and Archie Bunker's plays.
It's funny you're talking. I got a little bit about that, Mike. We'll get to that here in a minute.
Okay.
We had 3 channels back then, kids, and this is what we got to see, like it or not. All right, so let's just kind of jump in, because this one's got, from a historical context at least, got some interesting things to talk about we don't typically review in the course of a normal show. So this was directed by Tobe Hooper.
Hey.
Who we all know from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, among other subtle art films like that. He was actually picked because of that movie. The producers of this miniseries wanted to capture that guerrilla style, gritty, nasty horror flair that he brought to it, and so he was charged to direct this. It was written by a guy named Paul Monish. Really just wrote a lot of 50s and 60s TV, Mike. If you saw it was on TV in the 60s, he probably wrote it. It was very prolific. Some of his bigger shows were The Untouchables and Peyton Place, Mike. Capped that all off with the miniseries V, starring Mark Singer.
Beastmaster himself. Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Beastmaster himself. He also had a role in some Stephen King stuff. He also adapted the film, the screenplay for Carrie. He adapted Stephen King's novel for our friend Brian De Palma. I think the same year. So no one knows how much it cost because it was a CBS TV budget, but from the looks of things, not a whole lot. Whenever the vampire's teeth start to come loose, Mike, I think it's indicative of the show's budget.
Oh,
we'll get.
wow.
All right, let's. Okay, so this is a favorite for your host. Let's start the show by saying that we did not come to bury this one.
Yeah, this was a seminal. You talk about seminal moments for me.
Yeah.
This movie shaped me in horror movies for years to come after I watched this as a little 9-year-old lad.
This has come up in conversation several times in the show about this traumatic experience that Mike experienced as a child, as well as yours truly. So, like I said, we're not coming here to bury it. We've come here to unearth it and stake its heart, Mike. So, the best way we can do that is start to eviscerate the cast. So, Mike, why don't you walk us through the cast of this epic?
Yeah, you know what? As I started going, seeing some of the familiar faces in this movie, I was like, oh yeah, because thinking back about it, all I knew was David Soul and James Mason. They kind of carry the movie. And David Soul, who sadly died, I think, earlier this year, was most known for playing Hutch in Starsky and Hutch and having a big hit song, Don't Give Up on Us, Baby, which you may have heard.
I tried to listen to it, and I gave up on it right away. Sorry, Dave. Rest in peace.
You know what? Don't give up on us. I know we can still come through.
Don't give up on us, I know we can still come through.
And apparently you can't. So sorry, Justin. But he plays a writer in this movie where he, he grew up in Salem's Lot and now he's coming home. And he's a famous author of Air Dancer and I think a couple other books that they mentioned. But he's got the cool shade, the sunglasses. He's got the great 70s hair. He's driving a Jeep around with Colorado license plates. He just exudes 70s.
Yeah, all the good parts of it too.
I know, right? He has no hang-ups. He's a no nukes left winger. He's just a cool guy. He finds out that he is attracted to a girl named Susan in this movie, played by Bonnie Bedelia, who very young-looking Bonnie Bedelia, who later appears in Die Hard and is Bruce Willis's wife in that movie. Like I said, it was one of those. Wow, I forgot she was in it. The main antagonist that we have to worry about in here is James Mason.
Yeah,
there's an English actor who plays Straker, who's like this antiques dealer who comes into town. He's kind of the Renfield character in the movie. He was in. I remember him from Heaven Can Wait, and he was like in the original Star Is Born. He was like Judy Garland's, boyfriend, who's the fading star,
right,
in that movie. And he parties with Barlow the vampire at night, and in the daytime he's real sinister looking. He kind of walks around in a black suit and he's one of those actors, and he's really good, obviously. Yeah. But he does the eyebrow thing, and I love it because a lot of English actors, and when you find out that he was a childhood friend of Charlie Chaplin, it kind of makes sense. He used a lot of that silent movies kind of expressions, and like I said, he says so much with just a raised eyebrow. Lance Kerwin, who most people won't know who he is, but if you're a 70s aficionado or some of these really sappy TV movies, he was a TV movie veteran of the 70s and 80s. Yeah. And he's also he's one of Calgon's thugs in Space Mutiny, just in case you didn't know. But he's set up in this show, or in the Salem's Lot. He's the kid, and he's really smart, but he's also a horror fan, and that comes into play later.
Sure does, yeah.
You have Jeffrey Lewis, who unfortunately is not in a Clint Eastwood movie at this time, but he's the gravedigger. And he's playing, his kind of meatheady kind of role. So
father of Juliette.
That's
Lewis.
Right. Yeah. Can't forget Juliette Lewis, and I think he's sadly passed away too recently. So
everybody in this cast, Mike, is dead except Bonnie Bedelia.
I-
I looked it up.
Oh no, is Lance Kerwin dead?
Yeah, he passed away in 23.
Oh
January.
no, man.
Yeah.
Now I'm sad. You have Kenneth McMillan, who is a familiar face if you're a Dune, the David Lynch Dune movie. He was Baron in that. He's always a bad guy, a slimy guy. He was in Cat's Eye. He was, the
gangster that made the guy walk around the building.
Robert Hayes walking around the building. Yeah.
The tennis pro that had his wife's head in the duffel bag.
That was
awful.
That was not fair. I mean, he made it around the building. He still cut his girlfriend. Never mind.
Yeah, never mind.
He was a bad guy in Reckless. He was a bad guy in Ragtime. And,
yeah.
I could go on.
Great character actor.
I know. He plays the constable of Salem's Lot in this one. And he doesn't die in this one, but he's still a bad guy. Spoilers. Ed Flanders. He famous for being insane elsewhere. And he's a doctor in this movie too, in Salem's Lot. So that
for a while
works. Yeah. Yeah, he's another famous, 70s. There's so many of this cast that was just like, oh yeah, that guy was in that, and then there's so many like TV movie actors that you saw in this. Like George Zazunda, he was in Law and Order for years and years. He's always a crazy guy. He's in lots of movies as like a crazy bad guy. He's usually a cop. In this movie, he was the spurned husband who. Oh, the best part of the movie, he puts the shotgun in Fred Willard's mouth. And, goes click, click.
Was he George Costanza's jerky boss in season 1? He kept calling him a loser and I'm a winner. I want to say he played that character too. That may be too inside baseball for everybody. So.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I could be wrong. I would have to look back.
All right. We do our research during the show, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. We work it out. This is no rehearsal. We had Fred Red Boxers Willard in this movie. He's, was Martin Mull's kind of side guy for a while. Yeah. And he was a mockumentary veteran. He's been in like all these Christopher Guest movies that you would probably know. He was in Spinal Tap and
Steen Sealer.
I think he was in, was he in those movies about singing? No.
He was the dog show host and Best in Show. That's probably most well known for that.
He's a Joe Garagiola mock. He's really good at doing that role.
Just great.
Man, he's the first victim of a Barlow in this movie.
Yeah.
So there you go. And then you had the guy who played Danny, little kid, one of the kids. He was in Red Dawn. And I saw his face.
That's where he was from. Okay.
I was like, I knew that guy from somewhere. Yeah, he dies early on in Red Dawn. But
Wolverines, Mike.
There you go. Go.
Avenge me.
The special cast member I want to pick out here, and this guy, it was weird. He had like a role in this in the first half of Salem's Lot, and then the second half he just disappears. But it's Elijah Cook Jr. And he's a little runny guy. He's old. He was in a lot of 40s and 50s movies.
Yeah.
His most famous role, at least for me, was he was a Weasley guy in Maltese Falcon where he gets pistol whipped by Humphrey Bogart, and one of my favorite scenes. He's like, he did. But he always played that same guy. He's on a lot of TV shows. He's one of those faces you would know. But in this movie, he played Weasel. Of course, that makes sense. It was an alcoholic, and it's like he had a part in this movie until he didn't have a part in the movie. It's like he was cut out of it or something. I don't know what the hell happened there. But anyway, there you go. That's your cast.
If anybody was alive in the 70s, they were in Salem's Lot, basically.
Pretty much. There's a couple other people that were like, yeah, that guy. But,
But there you go. For the most part, TV actors still very strong. I mean, these characters were really well portrayed.
They're professional all the way.
It wasn't hokey by any means. So good job there, Michael. So let's talk about some other notes about this television movie. This was Stephen King's second novel and his second to be adapted. He actually approved of the script. They did make some major changes to the character Barlow compared to the book, but they kind of had to, given the budget restrictions of the film and all that kind of logistical parts of that. But he was okay with that. We talked about Toby Hooper. He was chosen because of his success with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The producers wanted that kind of feel to this. There's Jeeps everywhere, Mike, as you mentioned. Everybody's right. I thought there were 70s, a lot of Jeeps in the 70s, Mike, and it's a slice of life. But everybody's got a Jeep.
Did you make it nostalgic, Justin, for you?
It sure did. Jeep? And you notice that David Soul's Jeep, the door never stays closed.
Yeah, I love it. I love the scene. They're driving and he actually shutting it. It's
Yeah,
keep filming. You know, it's like,
Just- hey, we paid for the Jeep. We're going to film it. There's actually, because of its inherent nature on TV, there's 4 different versions of this film.
wow.
There's a 112-minute one, which I think most people have seen, like us, have probably seen on Amazon. It's a 2-parter, of course, that was condensed into one long film for general release. After that, there's also a 200-minute version, Mike. If you're privy to that, just depends on what scenes from which episode they decided to put in whatever
Okay, because
aggregate thing. So
yeah, all right, yeah. I watched I think it was 3 hours and 2 minutes or something. On the Max, and it felt like it was. My memory's terrible, but it felt like it was missing a couple of scenes that I remember as watching from.
Yeah, there's some things I remember being a little bit freaked out by as an 8-year-old that I don't. Well, maybe I just repressed them, whatever. But yeah, it just depends where you get the film print from. But for the most part, the story's pretty cohesive with all those versions. So, as mentioned, this came out in 1979. In the theaters, at least during the time this movie came out, you had The Rose. With of course Bette Midler. Yeah, movie we've talked about several times, but still merits a mention. The Fish That Say Pittsburgh. Like
yes,
theaters concurrently. Yes, then a couple of weeks after this, the movie Star Trek came out, which we reviewed. A podcast we did. Shows back, guys. Check that out. It's a really fun one. 1941 and The Jerk were all in theaters when we were watching that holiday season. On the music scene, Mike, some great songs on the radio. 1979, the number 1 hit the week this movie came out was Babe by the band Styx. We can never stop talking about. The next song, this is a Sessions Presents version, Mike. Take the Long Way Home by the band Supertramp. Do It To Me One More Time by
wow,
Don Dragon and Miss Tennille.
There you go.
Yeah.
The captain.
The captain himself never spoke. Not missing anything, I'm sure. The song Ladies Night by Kool and the Gang was number 4 on the charts, and then that number 5 song on the AP40 the week that this movie came out was The Dream Police.
Oh, I love that song. Okay,
Another Chicago band. Cheap Trick.
Yeah, that one's on my iPod, actually. I love that song.
2 Chicago bands in the top 5 in the 70s. What do you know?
There you go.
So let's talk about TV, because that's what, that was the media that this was really.
3 channels, Justin.
So we had 3. So this came out, this is a Saturday night movie, CBS Saturday night movie. When they didn't have a movie, they had the Tim Conway show on Saturday night on CBS. You got to watch that, Mike. If you weren't up for Dorf or a movie you could watch, you could switch over to ABC, where they had the Love Boat and Fantasy Island.
I watched that. That was my Saturday night jam right there.
That was everybody's.
Everybody. Yeah.
And if you're really hitting the bottom of the barrel, you could switch over to NBC, where they were watching Chips and BJ and the Bear.
No, thank you. Oh, God.
BJ and the Bear. Like, there was a time in this country where we watched a show about a trucker and a chimpanzee.
Greg Evigan and his stupid chimpanzee.
Of course, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century was also on Saturday night on NBC. That was in the fall, and the others were in the spring. So we got to see Gil Gerard a couple of times, right? And Aaron Gray.
Doing her yoga.
And Tweaky, voiced by Mel Blanc. As kids, we just called him Twiggy. That's what we thought it was, but it's actually Tweaky, which is much more cringy now that I look at it.
I know, right?
What a bummer.
Yeah. But there you go. So that was on the TV in 1979, and that's all you had, guys. You had 3 channels.
Not a lot of choices.
But what choices they were, Mike?
I know, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of it's funny how we've like totally switched now, where I don't watch one show on network TV now.
I can't remember the last network show I watched.
No.
There's too many of them. It's like the Woody Allen joke, Mike. Food in this restaurant's terrible in such small portions. What else is going on in pop culture in 1979, Mike? So this is the year that Happy Meals debuted at McDonald's.
Have you ever ordered a Happy Meal as an adult?
I can't bring myself to do it.
It's okay. You can do it. They allow you. Trust me.
Well, I'm not so much concerned about management. I'm more concerned about the ever-growing wave of Karens that are looking for some reason to be offended, and you buy a Happy Meal, they think you're a pedo, and they follow you around with their little camcorders saying, "Why are you here? Where's your child? You don't have a child." So I've seen several videos where Karens are going wild.
That's scary.
I just want wild variety. So
I just wanted some Olympic toys. So that's the only time I ever get them. I like toys.
Put a bunch of small toys in a carton full of food for kids. That's a great idea, McDonald. Just keep it.
This brilliant. Hey, it's lasted 45 years.
Yeah, good for them. And we were all watching The Jeffersons, Mike, one of my favorites. That was a spinoff of All in the Family. We were all tuning in, hoping that George Jefferson would call somebody honky. All right. So speaking of honkies, it's time for your host to kind of go back and look at one of the movies that really unnerved us as children. We've talked about the impact this movie had on us as children, and I'd only seen it a couple times since, but I probably haven't seen this in probably 22 or 25 years, something like that, Mike. So
I haven't watched it since I was like,
you were that scarred? Yeah.
Maybe 11. Even on the second time I watched it, it was a lot of hiding behind a chair and looking through my fingers, kind of viewing. Because I think CBS re-showed it, if not the next year, but a couple of years later.
Oh yeah, it was very popular, and they replayed it quite a bit. It's a very seasonal thing, so and rightly so. But as is the premise of the show, change of reference, and
yes,
some things have changed over the years, and
face your fears, just like other David Soul does in this movie. He saw a ghost in the house when he was a little kid, left town. Now he comes back and he's facing his fears and he's writing about the house.
So that's just as noble as we are, Mike. So let's
there you go.
Let's take our own little journey. So Mike, if you're ready, hit the button.
Tonight on the CBS Saturday Movie.
So as Mike alluded to, the movie kind of opens up with author Ben Mears, played by David Soul, driving back into Jerusalem's Lot, which is the name of the town, shortened to Salem's Lot. He's returned to his childhood home to write about some childhood trauma he experienced centered around this house, Salem's Lot, called the Marston House.
Did it bother you that this opened with them 2 years in the future, and it's already showing him and the Mark kid in a church in Guatemala?
The fact that it was 45 years ago, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I don't like when movies do that now. They tip their hand and make you kind of figure out how they got there. I think it's kind of played out, but 45 years ago it was probably a little bit interesting. But
I was wondering how he got bleached blonde hair after a couple of years. He must have been on the beach a lot.
Well, all that salt water in Mexico, Mike.
That's true.
So this is a very Stephen King trope where a horror writer goes back to his town in Maine to revisit his traumatic events of his childhood, but it works. We mentioned the Marston House, which is this allegedly haunted, spooky house that's got some nefarious history to it. He wants to write about and kind of research it. In fact, he wants to rent it, so he goes to the local realtor, played by Fred Willard, completely straight here, which is weird because
it's weird.
Fred Willard is never
he's never straight,
man. Yeah, he's always a little bit left of center, even when he's trying to be, But he says unfortunately it's already been occupied by this guy named Mr. Straker.
Straker.
The surprisingly strong James Mason here.
Yeah,
he's the prim and proper English gentleman who runs a little antique shop in Salem's Lot.
Do you know his wife was in this movie?
No, I did not.
Yeah, she was the mother of the two boys who get abducted.
Yeah, she doesn't have a very good fate either. Yeah,
I wasn't sure if that was one of his stipulations, and he's I'm doing a CBS TV movie. Here's the first clause in my contract. Have my wife in there.
Yeah. He had to leverage his wife in there.
Yeah, that's right.
But so he's meeting some of our cast of these sketchy locals, where he comes across and starts to romance young Susan, played by Bonnie Bedelia, as Mike talked. Another King trope. Straker owns an antique shop, and that King has used that quite a few times. At Pupil for one, which is a great movie. Everybody should check out that. Needful Things.
Needful
another great
Things.
one,
Yeah, this one seemed,
Yeah.
kind of not a rip off of it, but it was very similar in a way. It's the way he has a creepy guy, and it's like, oh yeah, you need this antique here. It's just okay. I've seen this before.
So Mr. Straker's shop is the owner here is this mysterious guy named Mr. Barlow, and everybody's curious, especially the realtor, is when are we going to get meet Mr. Barlow? Everybody's anxious to meet the new guy that's buying up property in Salem's Lot. And Mason's response is so great. He goes, "You'll enjoy Mr. Barlow, and he'll enjoy you, and he will enjoy you."
He will love to meet you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We get introduced to Lance Kerwin here, who plays Mark, who's a young high school kid who's a big monster fan. Was kind of jealous of some of his monster models and his toys.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Great posters too.
Yeah, and he's an art kid. And he's part of the school play, and they're doing this really horrible version of Independence.
I don't know. Yeah, it was like an our town thing, but then
just awful. As they're doing their rehearsal, a couple kids kind of leave the rehearsal and walk into the dark woods at night. They kind of disappear, Mike. And this is okay, guys. By modern standards, people are not going to get this, but if you were a child in the 70s, this is generally the first time you saw kids getting killed or kids being the victims in a horror film. And I think that's what resonates with a lot of us that were broken by this is you're not seeing a lot of that.
Yeah.
So we'll get to how that plays out here in a minute. But as the first act kind of progresses, locals start dying off. Mr. Straker hires a couple of local goons to go pick up a crate at the dock and deliver it to the Marston house. That doesn't go well, Mike. So they pick up this crate and they don't oversized.
They don't have any they have curiosity about what's in it, but they just want to get their $50 and just throw it in the cellar.
But it starts making weird noises, and it's freezing cold, and they get it up to the Marston house, and some bad stuff happens. But at this point, there's no reveal, and everything just kind of fades to black, and a lot of these little townies start getting killed. So one of the kids that didn't make it home was a little glick boy, Mike, and his brother's sleeping at night, hoping hoping what happened, and turns out the little boy's been killed, but not really. Mike.
No.
Yeah. So what happens here is there's a little family reunion. The Brandpower brother kind of comes to life, and it starts hovering. This ethereal version of him is hovering outside his door, scratching at the window, asking permission to come in. And we're going to talk about a lot of vampires movies this month, Mike. But I really like that classic trope about the lore of having to be invited in. I think that's for some reason that's a very powerful thing for some.
Yeah, that and the fact that these vampires have the the Kavorka or whatever, where they can you look in their eyes and you're hypnotized by whatever they want you to do.
Yeah. So there's this classic scene where Mark is also in bed, and then Danny Glick, who's also killed by his younger brother, comes out of the grave. And he's got the eyes, right, Mike? And he's scratching at the window. They filmed all this stuff with them floating outside the window in reverse, and then played it back so it would look more unsettling, unnerving. And guess what? It worked.
It does. Yeah.
But everybody remembers the scene. It's the scratching at the window, telling "Let me in, let me in." That's just horrible.
Mark, please, let me in. It's okay, Mark, I'm your friend. He commands it.
And again, kids had not seen that kind of stuff, and kids were the victims here. So, I mean, okay, we're big babies now, but back then, in that little vacuum, I dare anybody to come out it unscathed. So after about, a good 2 hours in, at the middle of the second act, we get the Barlow reveal, and it's one of the most insanely scary things. They kind of took the Nosferatu motif, and he's got the blue skin, and he makes his big reveal by smashing through in a different form as a bat. It smashes through the
That was great.
the
The way he
sitting
comes
room. Yeah.
up from his cape as he's laying on the floor, and he just comes up from inside it and just
Yeah.
and he's like 7 feet tall. You're like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Kind of like a reverse Wicked Witch of the West melting. He just kind of comes to
Yeah.
life, and he bonks the heads together just like Mo. the
Three Stooges style, yeah.
But he bonks Mark's parents' heads together and kills them right in front of him. And then the priest is there, and he there's an interesting scene where Straker makes the priest confront him. Like there's some religious overtones there, Mike, where he's trying to show that
you're a shaman and you don't believe in your faith.
Yeah, like his faith in God was useless and futile, and it was. But that scene is super scary. So, of course, by this point, Mark's been traumatized beyond belief, and because he's got such a horror background, he's such a horror fan. He knows that he's going to have to figure out a way to stake Barlow, and so he decides to go back to the Marston house that morning to stake the vampire. And then, of course, David Soul, who's just trying to keep up at this point, because he had an earlier confrontation with the Glick's brothers, his mother, and their mother in the hospital. He had met up with an old teacher, and they started to flesh out the vampire aspect of the movie. And it was really proven to them when they go to the hospital to see the mother, and she comes back to life, wailing for her sons, wailing for her. That was not pleasant. And he puts together a makeshift crucifix
with two tongue depressors,
and blesses it in water, and then scalds her head. And
it was a great scene because like I said, you kind of know his background. And he doesn't have a religious background, but he kind of converts himself, and he's like talking to himself. You can almost tell it's probably. I haven't read the book, but it sounds like even the dialogue there was so good. But the way he says, like, you won't find atheists in foxholes.
Yeah, there's no atheists in foxholes. I mean,
and
that's
then he
from
just
the book.
builds himself up, and he's able to make this crucifix and plant it on her forehead. And luckily it worked. I've never seen a vampire kill where they just disappear. That's crazy, right? That was a good one. That was unusual. You usually see him, turn into a ball of flame or melt into a little pile of ash or something.
Kind of disintegrates.
Or melts. Yeah, this one just poofed.
Yeah, and to the point where if I hear the Lord's Prayer, I think about that scene. Now it's just still kind of inherently kind of freaks. It triggers me. It just kind of freaks me out. But so of course, Mark the Kid's going to stake the vampire, and Bonnie Bedelia sees him go in there, so she goes in after him to try to prevent him from doing that. And of course, she gets captured and taken away, and at this point, David Soul shows up, Ben, and he joins up with Mark, and they go down to the basement, Mike. Well, they fall into the basement because
the root cellar.
Yeah, this is a very scary thing too. Like, there's no lights, and like the rest of the stairways cut away, and they take two steps. That's the Lulu, Mike. That's the first step they tell you to watch out for. Yeah. They fall about 30 feet into the basement there, and they find a little hatch that opens up to the crawl space, and of course they open it up, and it's full of all the locals and all the townies that have been converted, and so they pull out Barlow's coffin, and they open it up in the exposed daylight, and they stake him in the heart. And that's a very awful scene because it's the sounds and the squelching and the squealing.
And David Soul really pounds that stake.
He was angry.
Holy crap!
He had some business to take care of. And although Lance has been thrown to the wall to get out of the way, and behind him, unseen is
the sun is going down outside.
Yeah, he's in front of the open door, and there's like all these vampires are crawling out towards him. And it was just so unsettling and unnerving.
Yeah.
But they end up they get away. They burn down the house, and they look at each other and realize that Bonnie Bedelia's been killed, and he's overcome with grief.
Susan.
Yeah, and they realize because of their newly found appreciation for vampire lore that the Ben and Mark are fugitives now, and they'll never be allowed to rest because what's left of these vampires there's a vendetta. They're going to go after them, and they're never going to be able to be safe. So
Yeah, it's wrapped up so quickly, and you're kind of,
yeah, I think they kind of ran out of time.
It's like because they were alluding to the fact that the fire in this house is way up on the hill. Like I forgot what's like Scritty Politi or whatever. I forgot the name of the hill anyway. The wind was blowing towards the town, and it was going to apparently eradicate all the evil out of
just
Salem's
cleanse
Lot.
the whole town because everybody else had bugged out, right?
Flush out all the badness. And you're like, could that fire really? Oh, never mind. I mean, you think, okay, well,
yeah.
You think of that, and you're thinking, okay, well, they're running from somebody, and he finds Susan, in their little abode they're at in Guatemala.
Yeah, at the end scene, they kind of piggyback the very first scene where they.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, how did she escape? Because she had to be in the house, and the house was totally locked up. But
we're led to believe that she, as a vampire, had been chasing them across
2 years.
Yeah,
and then they it's kind of like The Happening.
Yeah,
where at the very end they show the wind rustling through the trees, and you're supposed to imagine that that's where the evil has been coming from. And then they pan up to the moon, and it changes to a skull, and they have a really good creepy song for this movie. It sounds like it was obviously it could have come from like AI if they had it back in the day, but it was very, very well done for a TV movie as far as that song. Because as soon as I heard it, it's like, oh, shudder.
Yeah. So I mean, there you go, and that's kind of the conclusion. And for an 8-year-old kid, if you made it out alive, congratulations. But there's some scarring stuff in here. By modern standards, not very scary. A little bit dull, kind of a slow burn. But we'll kind of get into more of that as we kind of review the films. But let's talk about awards and accolades first, Mike. So this had huge ratings for CBS playing this series, but it never really materialized. There is a Return to Salem's Lot, which I have not seen, Mike, but is another TV movie.
Oh yeah,
but
it's a low budget one. Yeah,
I chose not to. I just wanted to let this end where it ended for me personally. There's a remake in 2000 something or other with Rob Lowe. Not that good. I watched
it. A movie also.
It was like a TNT miniseries.
Okay,
Rob Lowe's okay. They took some liberties with Barlow, who's played by Rutger Hauer, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Is it kind of like the way they did I don't know if you ever saw the Shining TV.
Yeah, it was kind of that. They tried to be more towards the book. And
the TV one was actually more real to the team's book. I don't know if the TV one, I guess the Rob Lowe one might have been that way too, because I think Barlow's supposed to be educated or almost
he's just
genteel kind of
he wasn't a monster. He was more
okay.
I want to call the podcast the Rutger Hauer Power Hour, Mike, but it had already been taken. But
damn it.
Yeah, but he was in not too bad, but again, not very well received by critics or audiences for that one. This TV movie got 3 Emmy nominations for design and titles, for the graphics of it, makeup and music. But you want to know what it lost to, Mike, for music? The Benny Hill show out.
Yakety sax, man, you can't beat that.
And Benny Hill also won an outstanding variety show that year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I watched Benny Hill not too long ago, and you talk about things that don't age well and things that are. There is nothing civilized about Benny Hill whatsoever. He's literally like looking up girls' skirts the whole time.
I know, right?
And it's a big laugh.
It's the whole stick.
Benny Hill
getting hit with a purse.
Oh man. All right, so let's talk about what this movie did to us as opposed to how we felt about it, Mike. So this is part of the show where we go back and review the movie we just discussed, our interpretation of it as young people, younger viewers. Then we kind of review it again as grumpy old jerks to see how our frame of reference has changed. So, Mike, why don't you head us off? I know this was particularly tough for you, so I'm interested to hear your take. So.
Yeah, it's like I said, rewatching again. My first thought is like, oh my gosh, this was on TV, 1979, and it had a grit to it. And like you say, we'd never seen kids be abducted, and that reveal when James Mason opens up the little black baggie, and there's the little kid inside that's obviously dead, and you're like, wow,
what are they doing here?
Yeah, and it's from that point on you're like, okay, this is going to be weird. But
I mean, the Love Boat was playing on a channel at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, Fantasy Island was as close as we could get to like horror. I mean, there were some episodes of Fantasy Island that are legitimately like scary as crap, But this was like different because it felt more real and just imagining like, a whole town. I think I misspoke last week or so, or last podcast when I said that the horror movies that are like slashers are scariest for me. No, it's the horror movies that were people disappear, but then come back. It's like a zombie movie or a vampire movie or Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a good one.
Oh, that's a great
one.
Yeah.
You got a group of people that they just don't die and disappear. They actually come back in another film.
They become the enemy.
Yeah, and when you see the little kid at the window, and there were so many scenes in this movie. Like I couldn't have the curtains open in my bedroom for years after watching this movie. Like there's 3 or 4 scenes in this movie where, for some reason, these people are sleeping with their windows wide open.
It's hot,
but not the windows. I mean, just the curtains. Everybody can see what's going on in their bedroom. It's like then you see the fog appear. But there were years and years I could not like. Just the sound of that little kid clicking his fingernails on the window, just that was terrifying. The scene where the Jeffrey Lewis, the gravedigger, jumps onto the top of the coffin. Of course, he has to open it because he's like drawn to it, and it's just that scene, or even the scene where the vampires are waking up and crawling out of the basement. These were all scenes that were I just branded in my brain and just terrified me about this movie, but. I'm so glad I watched it because it was this time because you see it in a totally different light when you know that the effects are not quite up to snuff. Everything there's certain things that just knowing this is a TV movie takes away a little bit of the scariness. The freeze frames, like when Fred Willard right before he gets killed by Barlow, there's this freeze frame.
Yeah,
and when Danny gets his bite in on Jeffrey Lewis on the neck. Freeze frame. Yeah. That's kind of funny nowadays.
Well, you cut to a commercial. Yeah.
So. Yeah. When the Glick boy is floating into his older brother's bedroom, you can see the wire, even though they use a lot of this to try to hide it. And what was really ingenious was the kid has like planes, dangling from his ceiling, which were from wires too. So you can't really tell, really, really clever. Photo shoot for that, but you can still see it. It's like, okay, well, that's when you can actually see it. It makes it a little less scary. There's the perfectly cut out grave, that was done with hand shovels. You're supposed to imagine. It's just,
right.
You mentioned how Mark's parents, how they died Three Stooges style. I had totally forgotten that. I had imagined in my head that Barlow had just like pulled their neck back and sucked all their blood out. And here I am watching them just bonk on the head. They're out.
I feel so sorry for Larry and Curly now.
I know, right?
That's potentially fatal, Mo. Come on.
Remind me to kill you later. I'll make a note of it. I ain't got a pencil. Well, I changed my mind. I'm going to do it now.
It was. It killed these two instantly. And but most of all, I think the biggest thing for me that kind of helped me kind of get through it this time was the commercial breaks. You could actually see in the movie like the pauses for commercial, and you're like, oh yeah, this was TV. And for me, it was almost therapeutic to see this again and just like, okay, it was not even close to as scary as I thought it was.
Yeah, but it kind of breaks the spell, right? You're in the movie, and then when it does that, it's like, okay, it takes you out of it for a minute, and that's probably what it was designed to do. So,
but what gets me is, I think it's just seeing as a kid because you had these commercial breaks. You actually had these 3 or 4 minute pauses between scary scenes, and they were probably advertising, Tidy Bowl or Fruit of the Loom, and then you're going back to this movie, and it's just
Alka-Seltzer.
Alka-Seltzer. I can't believe I ate the whole thing, but like I say, it just I think that just giving some time for the distance and watching this, as an adult, it just wasn't quite as like even the little scene where they're all coming out of the cellar, the vampires away. I imagined that a lot worse than it was in my head, and I don't, it's just there was even the moon turning to the skull that seems scary as a 9-year-old, but as a 54-year-old, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is like something. This is like something we have in Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was still a good movie to me. I appreciated more watching it this time how well it was written. I know they had to condense this giant novel into 3 hours. And, all the characters are introduced in the first 30 or 40 minutes. Their backstory. the way they kind of introduced the people, how they interact in a small town. You felt like you were there, even though I'm sure it's probably filmed in California.
Yeah.
Even the actors seem to have kind of a New Englandish kind of vibe to them, and I kind of appreciate that. And it was having some gravitas with James Mason as a character in there, and David Soul. He did.
Yeah, he was like the Alec Guinness Star Wars element here. He gave us some validity. It was like, there's real actors here. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was still a good movie. It's just like I said, it there's a lot of the scares that are kind of defanged. See what I did there?
Yeah.
By watching it now.
Oh. Fanged vampire. Okay, I get it. Come on.
Yes.
Well, Mike, thank you. So I'm glad you made it through, buddy. I know this one was emotionally scarring for you. So my take's not too far away from yours. I had a whole other experiment going on when I was watching this because, again, we had these seminal moments in our childhood where we remember these things, and the whole premise of the show is not only do you remember things in an overly positive light, you probably remember the bad things worse than they were by the same esteem, right? The same token. So I kind of took this opportunity to use this as like a time capsule, like a science experiment to see, first of all, what's the value of your memory? How does your memory work, and how does your memory compartmentalize the things you see?
Oh yeah,
and so I try not to.
It was the Mandela effect for me in some of these scenes.
Exactly.
I'm like, I swear that kid was wrapped in tinfoil, not in a black bag.
Yeah, but how many years did you think that kid was wrapped in tinfoil? 40 years, right?
Yeah,
and that's what was so interesting for me personally. Like watching this movie is. What I found was that the freaky stuff still freaked you, but in a different way. And I remember things that scared me. I was shook by those, briefly, but it wasn't lingering. It's like, okay, that's not how I remember it. Why was I so scared about that? And I don't know if it's just a matter of a 9-year-old's perspective or a 54-year-old's perspective, with all that kind of baggage under the hood there, all that mileage, but it was a great adaptation. It was limited by the make-for-TV stuff, but not a whole lot. It was a bit of a slow burn, as we mentioned. They took time to develop the characters and to explain the plot. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the freaky stuff is still freaky, but I was more kind of fascinated by the way I compartmentalized the memory and my interpretation of the memories that scared me, seeing them played out again. There's been other movies I've gone back to, especially horror movies that. I go back and revisit thinking, well, I remember that scene scaring me. And then I'll go back and watch it like a clip on YouTube. Like, that's not even close to how I remembered it in my head. And it was freeing in a way, but it was also a little depressing in a way because that's
a little bit. Yeah.
It's like, it's not there anymore. It's been exposed, and sunlight is a great disinfectant, so sometimes you don't have that memory anymore, but sometimes you like it from a nostalgia standpoint. But all in all, I'm glad I watched it again. I don't know if I'll watch it like every Halloween, but it was something, again, from a time capsule standpoint. I really enjoyed going back and watching this, and I'm glad we covered it. And don't think my curtains will be open tonight for still, but there you go.
We'll do some ASMR, my fingernail click click click.
All right. So speaking of scary things, so on the last episode we talked about Halloween movies, and me and Mike kind of went through and gave ourselves a little self-assessment test on our breadth of horror knowledge by seeing how many of Empire Magazine's top 50 horror films that we had actually seen. 25.
And the top 25, 25, what we read out, that seemed legitimate. From our point of view, I think they all seemed like worthy. There were a couple of odd ones in there, but for the most part, they seemed like they were all genuine 25 horror movies that shouldn't be appropriately listed.
So Empire Magazine is a cinematic magazine, so they had their own kind of version of what horror Halloween movies were. So we thought it would be really funny if we took a different source, a different media publication, and see what their favorite Halloween movie was. So we wanted to go as polar opposite as we could to see how snarky we could actually be. So the best thing.
Now I'm scared. I wasn't scared during Salem's Lot, but now I'm a little frightened. Justin.
So the best thing that me and Mike found was Elle Magazine, the fashion magazine Elle. Let's just say the demographic there is not 54-year-old film enthusiasts who do podcasts.
I'm nervous about this one. I don't know.
We wanted to see a different vantage point to what the other side, so to speak, claims as a horror / Halloween movie. So we're going to see what the good folks at Elle, the editors, decided to come up with. So Mike, if you're ready, same rules apply. Same rules apply. It's just a very simple binary rule here. You see it, you get 1 point. You have it, you get none.
Hang on, let me get 2 tongue depressors here real quick.
That's my mantra of the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Let's do that same little qualifier we had last time. So the unfortunate soul that hasn't seen the highest rank film will be subject to ridicule by the other. And the other
we'll get an L from L.
Yeah, they're nice. Hey. Okay, well, there we go. So moving on. So the first one on their list here, their top 25, is the movie Midsummer from 2019. The Florence Pugh and the guy that directed Hereditary did this one. I have not seen this one, Mike.
I have not either. I was warned off it by my daughter. She told me not to see it because it was
okay.
It didn't live up to the hype.
Okay, just for me, it just seemed a little disturbing, and I didn't really want to go down that route. So okay, we're off to a great start.
Yay!
The next one on the list here is from 1986, The Fly, with Jeff Goldblum.
Now, see, I'm one of those weirdos. I saw the sequel. I saw Fly 2, but I didn't see the original yet.
With Eric Stoltz.
Yes, I saw
Did he take over for Michael J. Fox?
He's the son that Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum created.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
This is fantastic movie. You need to see this, Mike.
I know.
I think it was David Cronenberg did this. I'm not
sure. Yes, body horror for sure.
Oh, yeah. If you don't like body horror. I watched The Thing last weekend on your advice for that, and you're right. Didn't sit well. It's awful. I mean, it was a great movie. It's just very hard to watch. So, yeah. Okay, so you have not seen The Fly.
I have not. 0.
All right. The next one is from 2017. It's another Stephen King story. It.
Yeah.
Retelling. I saw that. Great movie. Andy Muschietti did a great movie. I didn't think the second one was as good as the first, but very good adaptation. The next one on the list here from 1988, Beetlejuice. I know you've seen that. Of
course.
We've covered that. I have not seen the sequel. Yeah, I think you saw that one though, right?
Yeah, it was an admirable sequel for it.
All right. So the gals are doing a good job here, so nothing to make fun of yet. So let's see if we can keep that pace going. Next one on the list is Donnie Darko from 2001.
Very good movie.
Very good one. We talked about that one last week. Okay, we've got some crossover here. The next one on the list, oh boy, here we go. We're getting a little off the rails, Mike. Scary Movie from 2000.
Oh yeah, I saw it, unfortunately. What? It's a comedy though. It's a lame comedy.
It's really. Halloween movies.
I know, but still, yeah. I want to be like, scary movie.
I will remember Chris Elliott's turn as the disfigured butler, putting his little tiny hand into people's mashed potatoes. All right, the next one here. Speaking of the devil, no pun intended. Hereditary from 2018.
Yes, so that movie is truly disturbing.
Yeah, I have not seen that one. Again,
oh my gosh!
I just look at the poster and I see that girl's dead eyes, and I think, you know what? There's nothing here I want to see.
It is a really well done. I mean, it's unnerving on so many levels. It's uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah,
it's just like wow. It's powerful though. You got to watch that one, Justin.
Okay. Well, this one, the next one here is Halloween from 2018.
Oh, I did not see this.
I saw the Rob Zombie one, but this is I guess a different one.
Yeah.
There's for Halloween. This is a reboot by David Gordon Green. It had Jamie Lee Curtis in it.
Yeah.
I did not see it. So it just
me neither.
Yeah. So okay, here we go again. Jamie Lee, the next one, Halloween H2O, 20 years later from 1998 with Jamie Lee Curtis. Was supposed to be the last one. I did not bother with this one.
No, I did not either. I thought Jason Takes Manhattan would be the last one for me.
I thought Jason in Space was going to be the last one. No, that was all right. All right, the next one on the list is oh boy, Disturbia from 2007, starring Shia LaBeouf.
Oh,
this is the Rear Window kind of remake type thing.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't see that. I was confusing this one with Disturbing Behavior, but no, I didn't see this one.
All right, well, I saw this one. It's not that bad, to be honest with you. As much as I want to goof on Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
The next one here, Mike, is a completely horrifying movie, but we'll see what you're made of. 1998's Practical Magic.
No. I have seen parts of it, but I have not seen that whole movie.
It's all female cast. Diane Wiest from our last movie was in this.
Yeah.
Stockard Channing. Nicole Kidman, Sandra
Efficiency Pittsburgh.
You think there's a scene here where they're all dancing to Motown music at some point?
I'm sure of it. Was that pre Hocus Pocus, or is that probably?
I think that was post
Hocus Pocus.
Post this Hocus Pocus.
Postest. All right.
The next one on the list is the original Friday the 13th from 1980.
Yeah, saw it in the theater.
Yeah, that is a great movie. That is completely horrible.
Yeah,
it was a horribly made movie. The acting is terrible. The special effects are not that good. The pace is awful, but I still love it. I can't explain why. So there you go. The next one on the list is, I don't know where this came from. This is the movie called Fun Size from 2012. It's got Jane Lynch in it, or not Jane Lynch. I'm sorry, Victoria Justice and Jane Levy are in it. It's set on Halloween. It's like one of those shot in real time movies where it's a comedy. I think Johnny Knoxville's in it for a little bit. It's a a 2000s like
oh boy,
millennial.
God, I forgot all about Victoria Justice, man. Wow.
Yeah. It was kind of like a millennial Dazed and Confused, maybe. I don't know. Just I didn't see it. So
me neither.
All right, the next one on the list, Mike, like you said, is Hocus Pocus from 1993. Horrifying.
You know what? The first, I don't know, 8 or 9 entries in this list, I was like, okay, this isn't bad.
Okay.
This is degenerating.
Well, you got to consider the source, Mike. This is Elle Magazine.
Fun Size in front of like Friday the 13th for Halloween.
This is Elle Magazine, not Fangoria.
But still, Fun Size?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, this should be like selections from Tiger Beat. No, but anyway, I didn't.
Lance Kerwin in Tiger Beat.
I'm sure it's the cover multiple times with Leif Garrett. But no, I did not see Hocus Pocus, and I will not see it. Sam, I am.
I have not seen this, and I'll tell you one of the biggest reasons I haven't seen this was I mentioned probably 4.5 million times that I worked at a video store, Blockbuster Video, and the first night I worked, I was in charge of I was a shrink wrap guy. We would get the movies in, and you would have to shrink wrap the cases, right, and then you'd have to put the video, the VHS, in the container, and famously you put like the empty shrink wrapped box in front. So I had to shrink wrap Hocus Pocus had just come in. So that the shipment of the Hocus Pocus came in, Mike, and I had to shrink wrap 200 boxes, and each one had Bette Midler's stupid face looking at me every time, and I was hot. I was burning myself on the plastic. We got 200 copies of The Firm and 150 copies of Hocus Pocus, and I had to do all those in one shift.
You poor fella.
So Bette Midler can rot in hell. I'll never watch that movie just thanks to that. All right, the next one on the list is A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. I think that's
okay.
That's
all
good.
right.
We did that show last year. We'll be re-releasing that episode next Saturday, guys. If you want to check out that, if you missed it the first time, we're doing a special Saturday re-release series of Halloween movies, so that one is featured. The next one on the list, of course, here's 1968 Rosemary's Baby.
Okay, now they're back on track.
Okay, but you have not seen that one, right?
No, I have not.
Okay. The next one on the list is from 1990. This is the Roald Dahl adaptation of The Witches with Angelica Houston.
Oh, I saw that one. I didn't see the remake though, the Anne Hathaway one. But yeah, I saw the one of Angelica Houston.
I have not seen that one. It looks pretty creepy, to be honest.
It is very creepy. You realize what a weirdo that doll guy was. You know, to see a movie like that. And of course, you see Willy Wonka, so you think the same thing. But it's even more dark for a child's kind of perspective on it.
The next one on the list is the original Scream from 1996. I think we both saw that.
Yeah.
Right. The next one here is the animated feature. I think, is this Roald Dahl 2, Coraline?
I think it is, yeah.
I did not see that one.
I have not either.
This is a stop motion tale. I don't think it's Tim Burton, though, is it?
No.
No.
It's supposed to be really well done.
It's supposed to be a great movie. I've never seen it.
What number were you on, by the way? Just give me some.
I think that's like 7.
Okay, so we're in the top. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We're in the top stretch here. All right. The next one on the list is The Nightmare Before Christmas from 1993.
I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. The next one on the list is, we talked about this a little bit a couple of shows ago, The Craft from 1996.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that one.
Heathers with Spells, they called it, Mike.
Thor Birch, yeah.
Yes, and
I
yes.
figured that movie been this list. I was thinking of like Okay, that one's got to be up there for
Yeah.
being Elle Magazine.
Yeah, so that's on the list. Okay. Next one on the list is It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown from 1966. I think we've seen that, right? You have to have seen that, right?
Yeah, all I got was rocks.
All I got was Dolly Madison's.
There you go. Oh no, Zinger Snatcher.
Oh, what's better than a raspberry zinger? I'll tell you what's nothing. This next one on the list here is The Exorcist from '73. We both talked about that one already. That's a crossover.
What a juxtaposition, huh?
Yeah, we went from Charlie Brown to The Exorcist. All right, the next one on the list is number 2, Mike. This is the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay.
You've seen that?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That's
fantastic. I think Meatloaf's best work, Mike.
Certainly Susan Sarandon's best work.
Yeah, but just Tim Curry's lead here is just beyond measure. Is how can you not like this? I've seen several live shows of this, and again, it's as good as they say it is, and it's just as fun to do. People really try to capture the spirit of this movie with other things similar to it, but they're not even in the same ballpark. Just fantastic. And the last one here on the list, Mike, of course, is the original Halloween from 1978.
Okay. All right. Well, good. I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't include The Shining anywhere in this list. That would have been sacrilegious, right?
Yeah. So let's see. I'm trying to think. We both. I think it's a tie on the highest one we haven't seen. That would be Coraline. We did see that, so that's a push, Mike.
Oh, please, Sam the loser. Please.
Congratulations, Mike. You've only seen 15 to the 25.
Yes.
I unfortunately have seen 16.
There you go. Aha.
I guess I'm the girl in our marriage.
Hey, now go watch Fun Size.
And get your shine box while you're at it.
Yeah.
We enjoy that list, Mike. I think it's fair to say, looking from someone's vantage point,
I'd rather hear a list like that and just get angry. Like, I think I told you before we came on that there was a list from Rotten Tomatoes that just came out of the top 200, and they had some real odd. They had like Jaws as number 1, but King Kong was in there in like the top 7. It was like,
yeah, not a horror film. No,
and that's kind of the thing about these lists is it's the list that just sounds like just silly, and you're like, those are the best ones that we can have fun with.
Generally, these lists are just developed to stir some conversation, and that's generally what they do. So they did their job.
They just did it for 20 minutes there. So good.
Not too bad. All right, so if you like what you heard today, you can check out more about our show on our Instagram page. That's at Grumpy Nostalgia. You can send us an email at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. We have a YouTube channel if you want to check that out. For some reason, no one else does, but maybe you'll be different. Maybe you'll check it out.
This will be the week.
Maybe this will be the week someone looks at it. You may have noticed our Grumpy Nostalgia homepage, the grumpynostalgia.buzzsprout.com. We did a makeover. You can check out that. We added a little section about profiles of your hosts here, and we put a link to some of our favorite podcasts if you're interested. And remember, at the bottom of every new show, underneath the title, there's a send us a message link. We'd love to hear from you, so do that. Why don't you? So, Mike, I think that's going to kind of wrap it up for this Halloween show. We've got one more left. We're not going to tease it, but it might have something to do with vampires. Who knows?
Ooh.
Yeah. So, Mike, anything else you want to say before we get out of here tonight?
Let me in, Justin. Let me in.
All right, so, Mike, that's going to kind of wrap it up. So for Mike James, this is Justin, and we will see you again next time.
Trick or treat, trick or treat, trick or treat for Halloween. Better give a treat that's good to eat if you want to keep life serene.